All right. Good evening, everybody. It's another Tuesday Conversations with Commodores, and I have got a new buddy to me who I met this spring coming out of Pittsburgh. Number 2, Tre Tarpley. Good evening, Tre. How you doing, bud?
I'm good. I'm super excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. And since we had that great dinner with Maya back in the spring, I wanted to get you on the show. But man, you are a busy dude. For those who don't know, Tre was a midseason recognized all-star in the USFL for the Maulers. It's not just about football with this man. He's got so many things going on. But Tre, for folks who don't know what's going on with you in Nashville right now in between seasons, catch folks up a little bit, and then we're going to get back into the good old days of growing up in Pittsburgh.
Okay, cool. So since you and I met in the spring, once the season ended, been waiting, for a call to go to the NFL and transition. And I was a life insurance agent for nearly 16 months prior to that, or up to 16 months now, I apologize. And I contemplated whether or not I wanted to go back to selling insurance, which, I did enjoy. I love helping out families and learned a lot of skills. But at the same time, I actually was presented an opportunity through digital marketing and a small course that I ended up buying that taught me how to do digital marketing through paid advertising. That took me down a strategic rabbit hole where I learned a lot of valuable skills. And during that time, I started learning how to put together teams for small businesses and entrepreneurs and what I call digital marketing strategy. So I call myself a digital marketing strategist because my job is to help small businesses and entrepreneurs who are looking to launch their digital presence or launch their products or ebooks or courses and things like that. And we take them and we give them strategy, implementation. We provide teams for them to launch, whether that's through email and SMS marketing, voicemail marketing. We do funnels, websites, paid advertising on Instagram and Facebook, Google AdWords. I mean, we kind of do all-encompassing place. So I've been working on that since about the beginning of August, and now roughly, we have about 4 or 5 clients that we're working with, looking to add more. I like it a lot because I sit down and just talk through, hey, like, where are we trying to go? And we have people that work hand in hand with me to help and make sure that gets accomplished.
Guys, I'll tell you how organized this man is. He's a professional athlete. He has already pivoted from his first real world civilian position to this new. And while this man is sleeping, he has teams overseas who are helping him put together the work for his clients. I love it. I love the hustle, Tre. If you guys haven't seen his Instagram account, you need to go check him out at Tre Tarpley. But Tre, let's put a cork in that for just a second.
Okay.
I want to jump back to Pittsburgh. I want to jump back to growing up in such a sports-minded town. I know that you were blessed and have been blessed with such a loving, supportive family. And I know that makes a big difference when you're trying to pursue your dreams.
Right.
I suspect, knowing the athlete that you are, football wasn't your only sport. So share a little bit about the younger version of Tre Tarpley.
So I played basketball a little bit and ran track. I wasn't the best basketball player at all. I'm still not the greatest when it comes to hoops. I stopped playing when I got basically to my freshman year. I broke my arm in between football season and basketball season, so I missed the whole season and wasn't super excited about getting back into it. Just always played because I was a pretty good athlete, and ended up just focusing on track. And then when I got to high school, I didn't really play too many sports, which, to be honest with you, I kind of not regret, but wish I would have taken a little bit more serious to try to do more sports. But there were so many things going on with the distance my parents had to drive before I got licensed to take me to and from and all these other barriers. But as far as sports go, yeah, I did a little bit of everything. Track, like I said, played basketball and then played football predominantly for the majority of my life.
So growing up in Pittsburgh, is that what folks, is that the athlete, the football players, what folks mainly knew you for?
Yeah. And it just in general, Western Pennsylvania is just football.
Well,
We have players.
You know, at Pittsburgh Central Catholic, it's not exactly an unknown entity when it comes to football, putting out football players. So I
Yeah.
know that's a tough league you played in.
Yeah, yeah. We got a lot of people that's in the NFL currently have been there. Everybody knows Aaron Donald. He's from the city. Then we got Tyler Boyd, DeMar Hamlin. We got a lot of people that are coming out of the city that have been doing well, and other people as well. So yeah, it's a football area for sure.
It is. And I think, at least to me, and I'm biased growing up in the South where we claim, you know, our high school sports are the best for football. I think people sleep on that part of Pennsylvania because for decades there's been athletes coming out of there. Now, I want to talk about how the transition coming out of high school and going into a D1 SEC Vanderbilt is no joke. Most kids, most guys have a period of transition. It's the rare student athlete that can transition from their high school experience straight to Vanderbilt and just completely flourish. Talk a little bit about your prep. Talk a little bit about your recruiting and your parents, maybe their influence, or how is it that ultimately that Vanderbilt and Coach Mason became your destination?
Yeah. So that's a great that's a great transition. So for me, my journey was a lot different than most people who are Division I athletes. My whole high school career up until my junior year, I didn't even play varsity. I didn't play varsity until my junior year, and even when I did, I really wasn't that good. It wasn't until going into my senior year. Actually, it was April. I'll never forget the day I was getting ready to drive through the Liberty Tunnel, and I was listening to Eric Thomas, and it wasn't the "How Bad Do You Want to Breathe." It was another video, and at the time I had heard it, I was just like, I just made up in my mind because I remember my cousin was coming in town. I went to pick him up from the bus stop, and I made up in my mind. I said, I'm gonna become a Division I athlete regardless of what it takes. And I'll never forget that day. You know, I went home and I reorganized my house or my room, I'm sorry, and started putting stuff up. And I was like, all right, this is my setup. Like, this is a reminder every time I walk into my room. This is what I'm doing. You know, now I got to figure out how to go train. So I just relentlessly went out and found all the people in my Western Pennsylvania that were already getting scholarships. And I just started DMing them. Hey, man, where do you work out? What do you do? You know, it was a humbling experience because, you know, as somebody who's also a competitor, you don't want to always have to reach out to people that you don't know. But I realized, you know, I didn't have the answer. So went out and found people. And I say that to say that my senior year was pretty fast. I mean, I came in, I had got an offer about a month and a half, 2 months later from Toledo. And then I didn't have any other really quote unquote, you know, D1 FBS offers. I had got a bunch of D1 AA's all through my season, and nobody would really give me a shot Division I. And then finally in our state championship, I got an offer from Temple. And then when we come into January, there was a small period right before National Signing Day. I know they've changed things around now, but previously there was a dead period for like 3 weeks between like the second week of December until the first week of January. So when I got back, you know, I went on a recruiting visit to Western Michigan with Coach PJ Fleck, who shout out is a great guy. And then that Wednesday was just crazy. So I went on a recruiting visit. All I had was Toledo, Temple, and Western Michigan. That's what I was deciding between. And I woke up Wednesday morning and I got a message on Facebook from Rod Chance, who's correct me if I'm wrong, I forget where he's at now, but he was the DB coach at Oregon. He might be the DC now, but he's moved around. Basically, he was at Vanderbilt and he messaged me and said, hey man, like we watched your tape. You know, you can ball. Coach Mason said he likes you. Let's hop on a call later. So I hopped on a call. They ended up offering me a scholarship. He flew
Wait. He contacted you through Facebook Messenger?
Yes.
That's crazy.
Facebook Messenger.
Keep going.
And I'm like, yo, this is crazy. So I went home, told my pops, we were super excited. I'm like, Vanderbilt. The only thing I saw on Vanderbilt was when they played Ole Miss, and that was when J-Matt was there. And they almost won that game. And that's all I saw on Vanderbilt. I was like, I don't even know anything about these guys. I was like, they're in the SEC. So then the next day, Thursday, I got a call from Boston College. Then Boston College offered me a scholarship. And what I realized was like, that's why my journey's not like everybody else's. Because granted, if I would have had those offers back in like September, I probably would have got offers from everybody, but they started rolling in. So then Indiana reached out to me, Missouri reached out to me, and I didn't get scholarships from them because it was only mindful. It's only like 10 days before signing day.
Right.
I went up to Boston College first. And then the moment I went up to, well, I'm sorry, I apologize. Reverse that.
That's okay.
I got an offer from Boston College first. Then I got an offer from Vanderbilt. And when I went up to Boston College, I ended up committing. And I came back, and then I don't know what everybody's belief is, but I'm a believer in God. So I woke up the following Wednesday. So now it's like literally 7 days before National Signing Day. I was already committed to Boston College, and I just felt God telling me, like, just go to Vanderbilt, just go check it out. Like, you only get one opportunity in your life to do this. Not saying you're going to commit, but you have to go check it out. Yeah. And I came down, and I obviously I ended up committing. And part of that commitment to me, as much as I have a lot of love for Coach Mason, me and him have a great relationship, it was less about him and more about, I always knew if my goal was to play in the NFL, I had to play in the SEC against the best competition, which, I mean, a lot of people can debate now, but the way it is now, it's kind of back to the way it used to be. But I always had that commitment. And then also the academics spoke for itself. I always like challenging myself. So I said, hey, let's do it. SEC, top 15 school in the country. If I say I want to be the best as a person, let me challenge myself. So yeah, that's really my journey. That's how I ended up there. It's very unorthodox. Like I said, a lot of people I came in with and played against, none of us have similar journeys, but mine's a little bit off. Cause like I said, I didn't get offers and stuff, all throughout high school. I wasn't this highly touted guy. I just, by the grace of God, ended up getting something last minute.
Trey, everybody has a different path, but we all end up in Nashville some way.
Right.
But at the beginning of your story is what I love the most. You have the humility enough and the maturity enough to recognize that everybody, including us proud athletes, we need a little help along the way. It is the extremely rare athlete who does it all by his or herself with no help. Even the Tom Brady's of the world, even the LeBrons of the world. Everybody needs some help or some guidance. And for you to reach out to DM some of the local athletes to figure out where they're training, and you got your head in that right space, and you said you straightened up your room, your world, your house, if you will. I love that. I love that, because I bet your parents saw a different version of you as well.
Right.
You know what that is? That's maturity right there, my friend.
Yeah, it was. It was quick. It was quick. I'd never forget that day, though. I remember exactly what I had on and everything. It was very quick.
Because that's one of the most important, pivotal days of your young life so far. We all have those days, good or bad. We've got days that we mark in our life that we don't ever forget. And you told it with such beautiful detail. I know how important it is to you. Now, let's fast forward a little bit.
Okay.
Now you've decided you're coming to Vanderbilt. Had you met any of the signees? When you came down, did you take an official visit? Did you come with your folks? Were you hosted by players? Share a little bit about that experience to the campus.
Yeah, 100%. So I did come down. I came down by myself at first because my dad had to work. And then later on that evening, Friday night, my dad ended up flying in because I came in Friday morning. I think it was Friday morning or one of those times. My dad came. Yeah, I did meet some of the recruits, but not a lot. There were so many people because Franklin had left. Coach Mason came in. And the weekend before that was when a lot of people came. I came the last weekend right before. So it was probably like maybe 10 or 11 of us. And we got cool, but we all kind of had similar journeys because all the people that came with me got their offers really late. So we kind of all related a little bit, and I'm still cool with a lot of those guys to this day. So that was super cool. I was hosted by Trey Bell, and who was the other person? I want to say it was Jalen Banks or Ryan White. I'm cool with all of those guys. But yeah, so it was one of those, we kind of all together. But yeah, it was a great time. I mean, it came down, showed me the campus. Obviously, we ended up going to a little party. That was cool. And then Coach Mason, you know, brought everybody in, kind of talked through his goals and what he was looking to accomplish. And like I said, more or less, it was, you know, Coach Mason's cool. He's my guy. Like nothing there, but it was just for me. It was the two things I said earlier. Do I want to get to the NFL, and is this a academic school that will challenge me? I really wasn't thinking too much about the actual degree itself, more or less of just like who it would probably turn me into if I challenge myself to go to this type of school, maybe versus another school where it may have been a less resistive road for me to get to, you know, my academic goal. So,
Sure.
yeah.
All that's important, but you skipped over something very quickly. And I think I know why you did it, because you know others are going to watch this. And you're so young, the statute of limitations has not expired in Tennessee for anything you may or may not admit to, Trey. You with me?
Yeah.
You went to a little recruiting party. Now, here's my question for you. Was that recruiting party upstairs at the top of the stadium in the stadium club?
You know what? It actually wasn't. I didn't, and you
Not
know
then?
what's crazy? You know what's crazy? I didn't even find out about any of that until probably going into my junior year.
Wow.
Yes,
Wow.
I'm serious. I didn't even know
Mhm.
anything about it until about my junior year, because at that time, you know, they weren't doing that. It was
Right,
the party
right.
was at the I forget the name of it. What the right there behind Grins, across from the baseball stadium. I don't know why I'm forgetting the name of the
That's
place.
okay. That's okay.
Right by
I'm too
Branscombe.
old. You're too young to have participated in the DeGraff and Reed's famous recruiting parties. We'll put that aside for another day. But obviously, your visit made such an impression that you had to tell Boston College guys, thank you, but no, I'm coming to Nashville, which I'm sure probably was not an easy decision. You're leaving the Northeast, you're coming down south, you don't know anybody yet, but you seem like a pretty adventurous guy who's up for the challenge. Now,
Right.
so clearly you get through all of that. Mom and dad approve, family's excited. You come down that summer after you graduate high school. Did you come down and take classes, or did you just report with the other freshmen like a couple of days before camp started?
No, yeah. So they brought me down June 3rd. So I was down
So
here
right
until,
after graduation.
yeah, right after. Like literally graduation, had a week, excuse me, and I was gone. Came down here, had classes in June and July, and then did camp, and then went into the school year. So yeah, it was quick.
So clearly by this point, you're looking, I'm not saying the academics aren't important. We're going to get back to that in a minute, but we're here about football right now. You've looked at the depth chart. The coaches are clearly telling you, Trey, this is where we think you fit in our system. Where were you on that depth chart? Were you told you were going to be redshirted, or were you going to be competing for some playing time?
It's another great question. So I came into camp, I was the last safety. I think it was 6 of us. I may have been the 7 or 6. There were 7 people. I may have been the 7th string safety and the 4th string nickel or something like that. By the time camp ended, I was the 2nd string safety and the 3rd string nickel.
Who was right ahead of you at safety?
Andrew Williamson, and then I was playing with Jamal McIntosh and Ryan White. He was the starting nickel, and then he was the backup safety. Yeah, and then we went to the first game, and I thought I would play possibly, and ended up actually like playing the first game, got a forced fumble. Like it was pretty cool. My first career.
And who was the first game against?
Temple, the dreadful Temple game with the weather and everything.
Yeah, the weather was just horrible.
Yeah, it was bad. We got delayed like 2.5, 3 hours.
Yeah. Now, playing in Western Pennsylvania and the league that you played in, that's serious. We've talked about this. That's serious high school football. There's some great athletes, and you've got good crowds, but nothing competes to Division I SEC crowds.
Right.
Even if you're playing smaller schools, you still have bigger crowds. Did you have any we all go through a little bit of it, but to the extent that you have butterflies, were you nervous? Are you the kind that threw up, or are you a big energy guy? Describe your pregame, those first couple of freshman year games, and your approach to getting yourself mentally ready for the big time.
Yeah, so when I first got to college, it was a lot. And honestly, to be transparent, I was like this probably up until probably my whole time at Vanderbilt. It wasn't until, I got into professional, and we'll probably talk about that, where some things started changing mentally for me for preparation. But I was kind of a big, superstitious guy. I would try to write the same things to have a good game. I would try to wear everything the same, listen to the same music. That's, kind of who I was. I'm not like that anymore. Stopped doing that probably 4 years ago, like right when I left college. But yeah, during college, it wasn't even just freshman year. It was all the way up until senior year. I was still doing that.
Well, now you're professional, and I suspect it's a little bit different clubhouse, a little bit. But when you're in college, you got guys all over the board. I'm envisioning you. Do you have the big earphones or the little ones at this point? And
Yeah, I'm the little. I've always been the little
Okay.
guy. I just like the little ones. That's always been me.
Now, is it thumping and you got the energy going and you're getting your guys going, or are you just kind of not trying to interfere with others in the clubhouse?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So like as far as the actual routine goes, and I did kind of go off subject, but as far as the actual routine goes, my freshman and sophomore year, I listened to more like rap before the game, rap, a little bit of R&B. But then my junior and senior year, I listened to predominantly worship music, gospel music, which is very different. And I still do that now, and I mix it up a little bit more, but I was very, very heavy into my junior and senior year, and it just calmed me down. I've never been a super hype guy like before the game, because to me, that's what the game is for, and my passion is going to come out in the 60 minutes that we play. I don't really need to do too much rah-rah, and I never really saw the point in that in college either. But yeah, that's really the transition. It was more rap, never thumping, like just like that type of guy. Sometimes here and there, when necessary. But yeah, for the most part, for me, it was, especially junior, senior year, was really a lot of just worship music, more relaxed R&B, just to calm me down. Just calm the nerves, stretch, get ready for the game.
It's starting to get your focus, get you some tunnel vision going. You don't want to spend all that energy, but every team has got some of those guys, and it used to drive the majority of the rest of us just crazy. Just y'all go into another room or go in the weight room and do your thing. Let everybody else just kind of get in their own focus. But everybody has their own routine. Everybody has, like you said, your own superstitions. Now, and I know we're getting a little deep on some of these things, but would you put on the same shoes or the same socks the same way, roll up the band? Or, were you that single focused on your superstitions?
Yeah, it wasn't as much like the gloves and the shoes, but it would be, let me make sure I tape my wrist and I write the same things on the wrist. Let me make sure, I wore this sleeve this game and played well, so let me just wear the sleeve. It didn't have to be the same color, but it's just that I wore the sleeve.
Right.
Yeah, it wasn't like super like down to the sock, like the same socks and stuff. I was never really into that too much, but yeah, it would be like styles. Like I wouldn't, if I wore longer socks and I did well, I would keep wearing longer socks, but I would, wear different socks or wear different colors and things like that.
Your freshman year, that first semester, you are thrown in deep academics, athletics. You're learning how to be a college guy at the same time. Every once in a while, you may even sleep. But when did you feel you were starting to hit a little bit of confidence and stride that, hey, I can do this? We don't always come in with that confidence that, hey, I'm going to be playing my freshman season. I'm going to make 3.5 GPA. I'm going to make a bunch of friends, get a girl, whatever. We don't all have that confidence. But when did you hit that stride? And I'm assuming it was sometime your freshman year, but maybe not.
Yeah, no, I would say I didn't hit it my freshman year. I would say Missouri game my freshman year, I think we had 3 games left. I kind of was like, okay, I think I can play in this league. And then, but the real confidence was my sophomore year. When I came out my sophomore year, I ended up starting the whole season. And by the last game of the season, I was like, yeah, it's over with. Like I know I can play. Confidence was like, I've played a whole season, regardless of the record, I knew individually how well I could do. And that confidence was in school and everything. I kind of got a grip on, okay, this is how things go. Tests are kind of like this. This is how I need to study. And that just got better and better and better and better over time.
It's like everything in life that we do. When we first start out, there's that learning that it takes you much longer to figure out how to do X or Y or Z. But now you're 2 seasons in, hundreds of plays on defense. Unfortunately, I think you've had either different coordinators each year or different position coaches, maybe even different schemes. I'm not sure, but you're at least starting to get that familiarity with your teammates. And take us into a defensive huddle. At this point, your sophomore year, on those occasions when you get together, or maybe you're just looking on the sidelines. I don't know how you put together each play, but talk about that pre-snap communication at safety to the back 7. Talk a little bit about what we don't see in the stands, what we don't hear.
Yeah, no. So I think the confidence with the communication came my freshman year. If we want to talk about that specifically, and just to kind of go into detail, I do pride myself. My best aspect is understanding concepts, right? And I think as an athlete, when it comes to communication, especially in the secondary, you don't focus so much on exacts because football is not an exact thing, right? There's so many variables that can happen. So when we're communicating on the back end, we're communicating concepts, meaning, hey, like we'll call it China, where somebody sits down and somebody's going vertical. Not guaranteed to say that he's going to run a corner route or he's going to run a true fade, but I want you to understand that there's going to be somebody sitting down and their objective is to get you to bite up so that they can hit the vertical. And if you push too far for the vertical, they can hit the sit down. So as far as communication goes in the back end specifically, we would always focus on concepts. I would always focus on concepts. When freshmen came in and I talked to them, I would always focus on concepts. Let me help you understand why somebody is doing what they're doing. Because it's one thing to just communicate. If you and I are communicating, but you don't understand what I'm actually trying to say to you, even right now, what difference does it make? And that's the biggest lesson that I learned, especially with the secondary, because the offense, especially receivers and running backs, when they're splitting out and, as the league just kept becoming more and more spread, they have an objective with where they're lining up. And as a player, if you don't understand what their objective is, watching film all week, but especially when it's game time, you're going to be so far behind and you're already on defense. So you have to be able to react, but you don't want to react so much that you're always reacting and you can't get ahead to make any plays. So I hope that kind of answered your question.
It does.
We just always want to focus on concepts and how can we communicate to a point where I say the word, Frisco, for example, and that makes you're another safety with me, right? And when I tell you Frisco, that says, hey, Bernard, you should probably get outside of the hash, right? Regardless of what's going on. And before the play, I say Frisco, Frisco, Frisco. Now you think, okay, I'm going to get outside the hash right now because my other safety is telling me that. And that's how we just communicate, just quick words and triggers that would be conceptual to make you think about something rather than me just say, hey, Bernard, get outside the hash to the left at 10 yards. That's too much talking. Let's just give you one word and you understand that. So that's how we communicated on the back end from my freshman year. And kudos to Coach Mason, because he is a guru behind that. Like, he taught me everything about football in terms of how things are set up, what are people trying to do. And like, he's a genius. You see him at Oklahoma State right now. Their defense is doing well. He was at Auburn. They were killing it. I mean, that's just what he does. He's a defensive mastermind. And he taught all of us that when it comes to, like, especially defensive back position.
Trey, let me be crystal clear. I would never be in the defensive backfield with you. I just wanted to put that on record. I was the slowest quarterback you've ever, anyway. But there's 80,000, 100,000 fans in Neyland Stadium or in LSU. I can't hear you from 7 yards away. Am I doing hand signals? Is that how we're communicating? How am I telling you Frisco if I can't hear you?
Yeah. During the week, practice week, depending on where we're playing, different locations. I mean, we talk about, how's the stadium going to be? What do we need to do? We have pre-snap communication. But to be honest with you, Bernard, especially when you're playing in the secondary, that's why you got to spend time outside of football developing a relationship. It's almost got to be like, I give you a little head nod, or, you hear the play beforehand and you know what to do. And granted, you still communicate, but there's a fine line where, you have to hold me accountable. I have to hold you accountable. Hey, man, we sat in the same film room and watched them line up in this formation. And we said, when they line up in this formation, you need to implement Frisco, right? And yes, I can talk to you, but, we're communicating with everybody. And not to say that you don't communicate, but to answer your question, yes, there are nonverbals, but there's also a level of accountability, especially in the secondary, to where you watch this film, you know what you need to do. And, as far as secondary goes, we should have no problem. We should really be focusing on getting these linebackers and the D-line in the right position.
Trey, only in a group like this of former players can we get knee deep in the woods or in the weeds talking about nonverbal communication between defensive backs in a snap read. That's why we do this show, because we got DBs who played in the 60s, 70s, and 80s and 90s. They know what you're talking about. That's what I love about this show. And I appreciate you sharing a little bit of that insight. I want to go to your junior year.
Okay.
I want to talk about beating those bad guys in Orange. What was that game like?
Man, it was amazing. It was
junior year 2016?
2016 was a great year, in my opinion. I loved it. I went through a lot of adversity personally, mentally, especially spiritually. But also, kind of really found myself. But as far as UT went, that was a game, man. They came in, I think they were ranked like 18th in the country. We had beat Georgia that year. We had just beat Ole Miss, and they said we were going to lose to them. It was a great game, man. All the way through, we played them to the very last, drive, basically. And, just played our butts off, and we were able to pull that one out. So I love that game.
October 15th. I'll never forget that Georgia game. 17-16 win at Georgia. Awesome win.
Yeah.
Then you guys stomp Tennessee State. You lose to Auburn. You lose at Missouri and at Auburn.
Yeah, that Auburn game was the hardest loss of my career.
I was going to say that was a 23-16 game. Then the last two games before the bowl game, you demolished Ole Miss by 21. You beat them 38-17. And then was the Tennessee game 45-34. Now, take us to that game. We all have our Tennessee stories. What was special for you about that win?
I just felt like they didn't respect us going into that week. It was a lot of respect. They had beat on us the year before that. That's when Alvin Kamara had really came out of his shell. Nobody really knew about him. We didn't even know about him before that game. Then obviously, 16, he had a crazy year, then went to the draft following that. But yeah, it was just, they were rolling through people. They were, like I said, 18th or whatever in the country. Yeah. And they were like, hey, they thought we got fluky wins over Georgia. As we were hearing all around the country from people, we're not really that good. We beat them because of X, Y, Z. And you know how it is when you play UT. It's just one of those weeks you hear the honky tonk song every day at practice, and it's like you just like, I don't like these guys. And we just live in two different worlds. But going into that game, we were prepared. Like, we came into it real prepared, and I think they underestimated us a little bit. And we got after him from the first snap all the way to the end. And we were just playing with a different confidence. Like, that year, we just played with a different, even some of the games we lost, I just felt like we played with pure confidence. 2016.
There was I don't know, this is my term, a controlled cockiness. And it was just, you got to have some of that as an athlete to be successful. If you have too much of it, then you might slip up and get beat. If you don't have enough of it, then you may not bring enough to the table or to the game that game. But that was a good year. There was 6-6, go into the bowl game and lose to NC State.
Mhm.
But that year itself was also a big year of growth for you, as you mentioned. But then going into your final season, what was in your headspace about school, about that season, your final season at Vanderbilt, and then beyond Vanderbilt, wanting to play or get into your next career in life?
Yeah, so going into senior year was a lot of expectations, at least for myself and for our team. We had most of us had played since our freshman year, so we were excited about it. I was looking forward to it. I trained my butt off. We had a great spring. Body was feeling amazing. Prepared really, really hard. Focus was obviously to get to the NFL. Finish school out strong, and that was basically it. Didn't really have anything else on the radar in terms of what I was focused on going into the year. And then obviously, came into camp and did really well, got into the season. So
Well, you guys started off strong with 3 straight wins. Then
mhm.
you hit big losses in a row, but then you beat Western Kentucky in November. But then again, you finished your final game at Tennessee, and that was a real butt whooping there,
Yeah.
42 to 24. I didn't have the honor of walking off of Neyland Stadium either year that I played there. We played them tough. But we didn't win either year. I want to know what it felt like walking out of that stadium, off that field, having beaten them so soundly.
Yeah. As during the journey, I didn't actually get to play in that game because that was when I had the ACL during practice. But as far as like a senior going out strong, it was super exciting. I was ecstatic that we were able to, finish them off like that. And just to put a stamp on the end of our career. It was unfortunate because our senior year, truth be told, we didn't live up to our standard. We started, like you said, we started off strong. We lost Alabama, then we should have beat Florida. We lost by a touchdown, literally 4th and 3. They
Yeah.
scored a touchdown on a play. We could have stopped them. Then we lost a lot of confidence. Then we went and I think we played Georgia after that, lost bad. Then we lost to South Carolina. Oh, I mean, we just lost a bunch of games that, in my opinion, had we won the Florida game, wouldn't even be having this conversation in this regard.
Yeah.
But, it is what it is. So it was good to finish out on a win versus UT at the end of the season for sure.
Well, Trey, talk about that adversity of getting hurt, trying as an athlete, having to figure out how quickly you can get better and what your plan is, and maybe resetting certain goals. Take us through that, because the injury to an athlete, particularly if it could be a career ender, is very, very stressful, very, very important, obviously. But take us, if you will, and I don't mean for you to rehash a tough time, but you learned a lot from that, clearly.
Mhm. Yeah. Toughest thing in my life, to be honest with you. To think about like how I prepared going to my senior year, and I literally was doing things to prevent major injuries. Like you can ask anybody that was at the facility, they were like, yo, this man Tarp was in here doing stuff for his ankles. Like I didn't even have any injuries. I was just like, Lord, just cover me, just I'm gonna do my part. I believe in faith and works. So I'm like, I'm gonna do the works too. In the way that I got hurt, like I stepped on a dude's shoelace, just a freaky accident. It wasn't even like I stepped on his shoe. It was like literally his shoelace, which is crazy for me. But nonetheless, battling through that was difficult, man, to be honest with you. Watching my brothers who are still in the NFL, get their opportunity. And I, was sitting there just recovering. And it, like I said, it happened my last practice. So I was out by the time, it got to May, and July was still only like 7 months out. And I was, fully healed, but I wasn't 100%.
Yeah.
And it was just difficult because I wasn't like going to be a draft pick or anything like that. I would have been, a late round pick, UDFA. Definitely would have got a shot. And since then, as far as football has been concerned, it's just been a journey. But nonetheless, it is what it is. I learned a lot about myself. that I'm forever grateful for. But yeah, that was a difficult time. I had some choices to make whether or not I wanted to, hang it up. And I kind of made that choice in December when I was at home just by myself.
Mhm.
And I was like, no, I'm gonna keep going after this, keep pushing. And I made some promises to myself that I have to keep. And that's why we are where we are now. So
Trey, it's almost like you had another one of those moments at home
Mhm.
or your hometown that again are a definitive day in your life. And I'm not asking you to share anything you don't want to share, but clearly it became crystallized in your mind that this is what I'm going to do. Now, fast forward to now, you're going to be entering your third season of professional football, right? Third year
Yep.
as playing in the USFL. And clearly, whatever that path has got you on, it's pretty crystallized in your mind.
Right.
And just to have that focus is to me is I just compliment you for that, because
Appreciate
it
it.
would be very easy for a senior player who's not going to be recruited, I mean, not going to be drafted very high or even at all, to say, maybe that's the sign that we're going to move on to the civilian life, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, it was like I said, that December I just sat in my house and I said, uh I'm gonna keep going after this guy. And if this just isn't for me, like
Yeah.
close every door. And I've had multiple times where I've got to that point, but that's I'm a firm heavy believer, and I will stand on that. I pray tough prayers that sometimes you're like, "Ooh, I don't know, I won't pray that," because you're like, if he answers it, I don't know how I feel. But for me, that's where I stand, and I pray it, and then if whatever he wants to happen will happen, and he keeps opening up doors for football, so I'm gonna keep walking through 'em, and do.
And I want to talk about that. I want to talk about being a professional now. We
Mhm.
talked a little bit about the rah-rah energy pregame. You don't really have that in the professionals.
Yeah.
You've got, I suspect not everybody is your age, and maybe a little older, maybe a little bit younger. I'm not sure. I don't know if you have any 35, 40-year-olds in the USFL, but
Right,
I
right.
suspect most everybody is either in one of two camps. And tell me if I'm wrong. They know that this is the end of the road. They're just playing because they still have a little bit of skill set, or they want to do the next level. They want to get to the league, and that's
Yep.
where they can showcase. And there's been a few players, at least one or two that I've seen even lately, who've signed and started playing a little bit in the NFL from the USFL.
Yep, that is correct. Yeah, you're spot on. Those are definitely the two type of people.
Well, what about your training right now? I don't know when your season, or excuse me, when the team activates you to come to either Birmingham or wherever you're going to be. And I hope it's Birmingham for my sake. But what's going on with you preseason or off season right now as far as a training regimen?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So right now, obviously, as you said, there have been people that have been picked up. So I've been talking to a few teams as far as like potential workouts, if they need safeties. So that's been a good thing, definitely on some teams' list. As far as my day-to-day training, I train Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. I do my recovery days on Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday, mixed between like yoga or going in and just seeing the physical therapist, just taking care of the body. A mixture of like speed work and position work, and then strength work. Pretty general and basic for now, that will remain the same. If it's not in God's plan for me to get picked up by a team, then going into the spring next year, they haven't given us all the details, but I think we report around the same time we did last year, which was early March. So it's still considered an off season. If I wasn't in that second person, meaning like the person who's trying to get to NFL and I was just like head set in the road, I probably wouldn't be doing too much right now because we still have about 5 or 6 months until the season kicks off.
Right.
But obviously, with information I'm getting from my agent and just talking to a few teams, I mean, I could get a call at any point in time. So I'm just generally trying to stay in shape. That way, when that opportunity comes, I'll be prepared. But yeah, as a day to day, wake up in the morning, depending on the training schedule, either 6 or 6:30. I used to get up at 4, like before the USFL, because I was doing the insurance. But now that I have a team and I can get a little bit more rest, which is good too for my body, but also for my recovery and training, it's making my training sessions better. Get up, grab something to eat, take a car ride over to the facility, finish training at about 11:30, take a shower, come back home. Then I work on the business from 12 to like 7, 12 to 8 with breaks in between, relaxing with my fiance. And then my virtual assistants, they start at 7 o'clock. So they get on the roll and they work through the night. And then when I wake up, we just rinse and repeat. So.
Well, if you guys think that he's got a tough training schedule, his fiance's in medical school, and I suspect she's putting in just as much time as Tre is. So I know you guys.
Yeah, now she's putting in more time. She's studying right now. She's been studying. She got tests every week. So I got a lot of respect for her and how she goes about handling her business.
Awesome. Guys, I've got Tre Tarpley for just a couple more minutes. We're talking about some good stuff. We did get a little deep in the weeds, talking about defensive backfield communication, but I love it. And Tre, I really appreciate you sharing some of your journey so far. And I'm going to cut you out of here in a couple of minutes. I want to talk about, you hadn't been gone from the program from Vanderbilt very long. Some guys, when they leave Vanderbilt or they leave college football, it's out of their system. They really need some time away from the program for whatever reason. Maybe it wasn't as fulfilling, or maybe it was great. I'm not judging your experience, but here's my question to you. New coaching staff, some of the coaches who are on the staff, they're former players from different years. Have you been around the program in the last 2 years? Are you in touch? Do you ever go to the games, or are you pretty far removed from the program right now?
Yeah, so last year I was extremely far removed. 2020, or it's 2022 now. Wow. 2021, I was extremely removed from the program. I didn't go around, and it was nothing towards Coach Lee or any of the other coaches there. Literally nothing. No problems with them. I just had some personal things I had to deal with in terms of my experience from my injury and things like that. But then I came around, me and Coach Lee and I apologize, had a great conversation. He's a great guy. We met in the summertime when I got back from the USFL. We talked for like an hour and a half, got to know each other pretty well. Then I met some of the other coaches I hadn't talked to before. I've been to 2 games now. I don't go to all of them just based on timing and other things that I have to do. But I have gone up there, and I do go up there as much as I can, meaning like maybe once a week just to go check in, talk to the people at the strength staff. I'm actually really connected with the people at the front, not the front office, but the people who work in the academic department, as well as the trainers, the actual trainers. I've developed a good relationship with them. So I still talk to everybody, go up there, not as frequently, like, maybe here and there, but I have been a lot more involved now than I was previous years.
Well, I guess, are there any maybe 5th or 6th year guys who are on the roster your senior year, or are they all rotated and graduated out?
Yeah, I think I only know one person on the team now. Yeah. Like, I think everybody's gone. Last year was my last year knowing people. Yeah. But yeah, I think I only know one person who's still on the roster. And I know of, a bunch of guys, but actually only one person.
Well, you're just getting old. So welcome to the club, old man.
Right.
Well, in closing, Tre, what do you like about the game now? I know it's only been a few years since you were wearing the black and gold, and the game keeps evolving. Every year there's new rules. Every year there's new trends. Is there anything about, and you don't have to talk about Vanderbilt specifically, maybe just what you observe, or maybe you do like the schemes that Coach Lee's got going on, but what is it about the game now that excites you from the collegiate level? And I know it's very different from what you're doing on the pro level. I know that.
Are you talking about more specifically Coach Lee and Vanderbilt, or are you just saying in general for college?
Just however you want to respond, either way.
Okay, yeah. No, I would say for both, honestly. I think it's interesting. I don't like it as much as a defensive player because it's like high scoring games. And I'm not the biggest fan of scoring 40, 50 points.
Yeah.
Just because, like, as a defensive guy, it's not fun to just watch people score touchdowns all game. I know fans enjoy it, but as a player, I mean, I don't really enjoy it.
Well, along those lines, I'm going to focus on the SEC because that's all I watch, frankly, like most of us. Targeting rules are so stressed, anti-targeting, and I'm hoping that the current coaching staffs in the college ranks are teaching a different technique. But just in the game the other night, I think it was the Mississippi State game, there were at least 2 Mississippi State players that just came in and it looked like it was straight crown of helmet making contact with defenseless offensive players. And I know I'm an offensive guy, that's not fair, but we see so much targeting still going on. Does that give a little bit of doubt in that killer instinct for a defensive back sometimes?
That's what everybody talks about. This is always interesting. My personal opinion is no. I think that some things just happen. It's a fast game, as you know. You can't sit here and say, "Oh, I'm always going to do it like this."
Yeah.
I think that where everybody's trying their best to keep everybody safe. I don't necessarily think players, I can't speak for everybody, but players truly go out there trying to hurt people. Do they go out there and try to lay a big hit? Yes. Is that what people would like to do? Yes. But are they trying to hurt people? No, because we've all been hit really hard and not hurt at all. And I mean not hurt at all from like the physical pain, but also as well like their head, they're not spinning, not seeing stars. It's happened to everybody who's played football. They got hit really hard. Like, wow, that hurt, but I'm fine. And people have also had hits that aren't that hard where they kind of get up and they're like, oh, they might see stars a little bit or whatever. And it's just the name of the game. I think that personally, there's a lot of judgment behind how the game should be played or what should happen. But at the end of the day, it is football. It's a full speed sport. And if you just tilt your head a little bit with the velocity you're going, just like anything moving, right? You could tilt this a little bit and it's going to go like this. You could tilt this and it's going to go like this. You're not moving this slow to where it's just going to hit. So, I don't always blame the players. Now, there are unnecessary times where you just come in with your head down. Like, that's not cool.
Yeah, those are pretty few and far between, but they're pretty obvious. But I know as an athlete, whether you're a receiver or whatever side of the ball, you can't play in any fear. You have to go full. You have to be a smart athlete or you will get hurt. And I just hope that, I know there's a fine balance and it's ever evolving. And again, I'm not trying to get too deep into this, but it just seems like even now, there's still so many instances in games where you're just like, oh man, that looks like it could be bad. But you're right. Some guys bounce up like no big deal, thumbs up, go back to the huddle. Other guys are woozy and anyway. Trey, the last thing I want to throw at you, the very last thing.
Okay.
What makes you proud to be a Vanderbilt Commodore, to have graduated, to have played there, to represent the black and gold? What is it now in your everyday life, whether it's with the Maulers or with your businesses that you're doing from a social media standpoint? What makes you proud?
That's a great question. Me and Trent Sherfield, my best friend, we were talking about this the other day. The thing that I'm the most proud of is the type of person that Vanderbilt has made me. The person who looks at adversity, not just from an athletic standpoint, but adversity in life and has how can I get through this mentality? I think it's one thing as an athlete to push through pain and say you want to get to NFL and do all these great things. And I think there's another reality to what type of person are you when adversity strikes in any realm and what do you do about it? And I personally think that while all athletes that have pushed through that can do that for sports, I am a believer that level of adversity for something else in your life is there, but I think at Vanderbilt, it taught us to respond quicker than other places may have. Not to say other places can't, but I'm proud to say that it's made me the type of person who looks at adversity very differently. And being there and going through that while being at Vanderbilt has made me into the person that I'm proud to say that I am. Somebody who's okay with things that are difficult, somebody that recognizes that, there is more to your process than just one avenue, right? Even inside of being an athlete, right? There's the opportunity for you to leverage endorsements. There's an opportunity for do a lot of things. And I think that Vanderbilt granted me the mindset to be able to do that. And I'm forever thankful for it. So that's what I would say.
Oh, that's perfect. That's awesome. That's the reason why so many of us go to Vanderbilt. That's the reason that Vanderbilt is such a different school than so many others, that other more talented athletes or even athletes who end up at Vanderbilt with, regardless of how talented they are, that's why they choose Vanderbilt. But I don't think until you get there and you put the time in and you meet the people and you go through it, can you appreciate what you have gone through. And Tre, I can't thank you enough, but not only for our new friendship, but for sharing your journey tonight and taking us through your story. So thank you.
No, I appreciate you. And thank you everybody who's watching this and will watch this at a later date. If you guys ever need anything, whether it's individuals that have kids or other players that are watching this that are younger and want to reach out, you can reach me at on my Instagram at Tre Tarpley, and it's TRE. There's no Y, and it's Tarpley. I'm on Twitter, Facebook. Reach out to me directly. Would love to help, whether it's just mindset, business, and then obviously, football, playing the safety position, so on and so forth. So I appreciate you, Bernard, for having me. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure, my friend. And what Tre doesn't know is that the Saturday morning of the South Carolina game, he's leading a yoga class. And we'll talk in just a minute. You hang on, don't sign off yet, guys. This is why we do this show. We're telling the oral history of Vanderbilt football. I love every one of these conversations. You guys anchor down.